Hello, friends. I was pleased to have a couple folks hit me up about wanting to hear and see this late 60s Yamaha SA-15D being played. And so I'm going to plug it in. But just in case people are watching this video that did not see the post and hear a couple of the idiosyncrasies about it, or just like the tales behind it. Here's a few things that are worth noting. There are two editions of this guitar. Well, two and a half. Yamaha made the SA-15 and the SA-15D. This is the SA-15D, and the D is telling you that it is fancy. Here's how it is fancy. It's fancy because it has a checkerboard that is black and white checkers in the binding that go around the entirety of the top, and then your fretboard markers are kind of like a Gretsch style thumbprint. The style of this checkerboard binding is aping what Rickenbacker was doing in the late 60s on their Rickenbacker 360s, I think. I've never owned a Rickenbacker. Maybe this year. Maybe you'll help me own a Rickenbacker by buying this guitar. The SA-15 regular just got a plain cream binding on the top, and it got regular dot fretboard markers. As I was saying in the post, I think that this is a really cool time for Japanese guitars. This is painting with an inappropriately broad brush, but up until this point, roughly, of like the late 1960s, the Japanese guitars that were getting to America were on the whole like pretty terrible. We now have like a charming nostalgic relationship with these guitars, and I think for good reason. They rule. I think they rule. Like Tysco's, Kent's, Kimberly's, all of a ton of different brand names were being made by just a few companies in Japan, and were hitting the US and aiming for like the Sears catalog Montgomery Ward introductory lower price point than the other American made guitars at the time. The other American made guitars at the time of note were some of the ones that you still know of today, like Gretsch and like Rickenbacker, like Fender, and like Gibson. And to a certain extent, especially for professional musicians, the Japanese guitars that were hitting the United States between let's say like the late 50s and say the mid 60s were not really a threat to that portion of the marketplace. But here, roughly in time, is where Japanese guitars get weird and good, or they first start to get good. A few years after this, let's say like the early 70s to the mid 70s, Japanese guitars would become so good that they would end up being a major threat to like American legacy companies in a way that they were not yet at this point in time. But this is like this is like the zombie before you realize that there's a problem. Like, it's I don't know, bad analogy. A cool thing about this guitar, it is fully hollow, so there is no center block to it. Condition wise, I think it is in really nice shape. The body's got some dings and swirling and such, but no breaks of any kind. You've got a little like chip out of the, it's hard to show on this camera right now, but it presents cleanly. You can tell that it is more than 50 years old, 55 years old ish. The electronics are by and large original. When I got this guitar, it was in a sorry state of repair. It was just very, very dirty. And the nut was cut terribly. So I handed it over to Terry at Harry's Guitar Shop in Raleigh, and he did the principal setup on things. I can't remember if a pot needed to be replaced or not. I know that not all of the pots need to be replaced, but they may not all be original. The switch is original and the pickups are original. The pickups you might mistake from across the room as humbuckers or mini humbuckers, but they are single coils. They've got a little bit of that single coil hum, but sound fantastic. They are definitely not high output pickups. Design wise, you are still doing some weird things when you are a Yamaha guitar from the late 1960s. The solid body guitars from this era that Yamaha were making are fantastic and hilarious. So this pickguard is made of plastic or maybe Bakelite, and it is fragile. There is, or more fragile than any pickguard that you would see today. There's a hairline crack at that screw joint, but otherwise it is clean. Most of the ones that I've seen of this guitar, this pickguard is like fucked. But all of the electronics are actually, or all of the pots and the switches are mounted to the pickguard, and then kind of floating over the cavity, which is an interesting design choice, and probably not one that you would see today. The neck feels phenomenal to me. There's some like basic fretwear in the cowboy chord zone, but not enough that it is gonna bug anybody. It plays cleanly all the way up the neck, and the silk screen for Yamaha has slid off of the headstock. The only repair on this guitar that is evident to me is on the back of the headstock. This I'll try a little bit harder to show you, but it still may be tougher to see. I didn't notice that there was a repair until I had the guitar for about 4 months, and I've had it for a couple of years now. It's just not going to show up, but like there's a faintest shadow underneath this paint of the shape of like a very tiny popsicle stick, and you can tell that there is a spline of some kind reinforcing that neck angle. What actually happened, nobody will know, but it was clearly done a long time ago and is not moving in any direction. Let's see. I'm usually pretty hard on guitars. Like I play them hard, or like I've got a hard right hand. I sweat a lot on them. This guitar, it has always sort of, I don't know, it's kind of like asked me to be gentle to it. It just set up. I usually play with heavy-ish strings, like at least 11s on most guitars, and I just asked Terry when he was doing the initial work to get this in playing shape to put whatever strings he thought would work best on it, and he landed on 10s, and they just like feel so nice. There's a lot of good room to bend. Feels comfortable finger picking. Before I play with like amp flavor, it has this really nice like almost like banjo-esque acoustic tone that I've used recording before. I'll just mic this guitar not plugged in, and it's done a really cool job of still being like a note, but I've liked the way that it worked in a mix like that. One of the common issues with the late 50s through like mid 60s, like quote unquote like bad Japanese guitars, is that sometimes the bridges would just be in the wrong place. Like they would be impossible to intonate. They almost got this right. It is in roughly the right place. However, the range of motion, the range of adjustability that you have to intonate on the saddles, stops just shy of where it wants to be. So all of these saddles are pushed all the way back. Luckily, it runs out of room right at the point that it intonates pretty darn well. It is not 100% there, but it's way. I mean, so like I would not go. It does not bug me one iota, and it's also not a indication of there being like a problem. This is just the best it could have ever gotten. It's not sort of like a problem that's accelerating in any way. This is the third one of these videos that I've made, and each one is getting successfully, not successfully. They're getting longer, so either you're watching this because you like learning about a very cool old guitar, or this is information that you are happy to be getting if you are considering buying this guitar. Oh, I kind of lost the train of thought a few minutes ago when I was talking about how this guitar liked being set up with like lighter strings. It also likes a lighter touch. It is like a bit more fragile than it just, as soon as you pick it up, at least for me, as soon as I picked it up and was getting used to it, it was just like, oh, this guitar does not want to have the shit beat out of it. Doesn't mean that it only does clean stuff. It sounds great with fuzz and all other manners of dirt. But it does mean that it just like, it doesn't, it's not the, it's just you can pump the brakes a little bit before you just like demolish it. This is the neck pickup, and it's probably the pickup that I like best. The tone is rolled all the way up. I really like the vibrato on here. It's not a fucking don't do that, but it's got a really good move in both directions, and it's stable enough. We can do that through an entire song and not mess anything up. Cool little mini note. The feel of the guitar is a little softer when the vibrato arm is up, even if you're not using it. And then if you click it back like this, same feel. If you click it back, not click it, but just swing it backwards so that it touches the most surface area of this of the control mechanism, everything kind of stiffens up a little bit in a way that's like kind of nice and interesting. There is reverb happening. I'm sorry that I have to play this quietly. There's a cute kid that's asleep in the next room. That's bridge all the way up, and here's both. I like it, I think, most almost with both pickups on, but the bridge rolled all the way. The bridge rolled just a little bit off. It also sounds different and nice. I think it's worth showing you the guitar coming through an amp that has no reverb on, and so I've just switched over to a. Right now, beforehand you were on a Mesa Boogie Mark III in the mid '80s. And now you're in a mid '70s Vibro Champ. What I'm hoping is coming through on the camera is it's like a kind of dry, woody hollowness that comes through that just is so pleasant. Well, so great. There you go. And if you asked to see this guitar played, then here it is. But this is fun for me to do. This is fun for me to do with anything. And so if you ever are like, holy shit, if you ever post something that's for sale or not for sale, and you're like, oh, that looks cool. Can I see that working? Then just ask me, and I'm happy to do it if I've got time. Even if like I'm not gonna buy that. I just want to hear it. This is fun for me. So I hope it doesn't feel like a sales pitch, because I don't know, like the right person is gonna buy this. Like I'm not gonna have to sell it really, because it just like it's gonna sell itself. So when you hear this, I hope I don't. When you hear this, I'm doing my best not to sound like somebody wants you to buy a timeshare from me. That's all, and we made it all the way to 19 minutes. So, way to go us.